The world was young. The dust of creation still sparkled in the morning sun. Adam and Eve, the first man and the first woman, had been cast from the paradise of Eden, and now they walked upon the earth with their sons. Two brothers, born of the same womb, raised under the same sky, destined for entirely different fates. Cain was the firstborn, the eldest, the one who held his mother's arms first, who tasted the fruits of the earth before his brother ever drew breath. He became a tiller of the soil, a farmer, a man whose hands knew the texture of dirt and the rhythm of seasons. He planted seeds, he watched them grow, he believed that through his sweat and labor, he could coax life from the ground itself. Abel came second, the younger son, the shepherd. While Cain bent his back beneath the sun, Abel walked the hills with his flocks. He knew the bleating of lambs and the silence of starlit nights. He understood the language of animals, the trust between a man and the creatures he protected. There was gentleness in him, a peace that seemed to draw the favor of heaven itself, and that favor would become the spark that burned everything to ash. The brothers had been taught to bring offerings to the Lord. This was the way of their parents, the tradition passed down from the garden, from the moment when God made garments of skin to cover their nakedness. Sacrifice was the language of devotion. It was how mortals spoke to the divine. Cain prepared his offering with care. He selected the finest fruits of his harvest, the grains that had ripened to perfection, the produce of his endless labor. He arranged them beautifully, this gift from the ground he had wrestled into submission. He believed that God would see his effort, his discipline, his worthiness. He believed that the work of his hands would speak for him. Abel's offering was different. He brought the firstborn of his flock, the fat portions, the best of what he had. He did not merely give what he had grown or gathered. He gave life itself, a living thing surrendered, blood poured out, smoke rising to the heavens carrying the weight of something precious, something irreplaceable. The Lord regarded Abel and his offering. Fire from heaven consumed the sacrifice. The smoke rose straight and true, a pillar connecting earth to the throne of God. The Lord accepted Abel's gift. The shepherd's heart swelled with gratitude, with the overwhelming knowledge that he was seen, that he was loved, that his devotion had found its mark. But Cain and his offering received no such sign. The fruits sat upon the altar, untouched. No fire fell, no smoke ascended. The silence of heaven was deafening. The rejection was absolute, and in that silence, something ancient and terrible began to grow. Why was one accepted and the other rejected? The question has haunted humanity for millennia. Some say it was the heart behind the gift. Abel gave his best, his first, his most precious. Cain gave what he could spare. Some say it was the nature of the offering itself, that blood speaks a language that grain cannot comprehend, that sin requires a covering that only life can provide. Others say that God looks upon the inward parts, that he sees the secrets of the soul, the hidden motives that we conceal even from ourselves. Whatever the reason, the result was undeniable. Abel was favored, Cain was not, and favoritism is a poison that kills slowly at first, then all at once. Cain's face fell. The scriptures do not hide this. They tell us plainly that his countenance changed, that darkness gathered in his features, that the light went out of his eyes. He burned with a shame that curdled into rage, a rejection that fermented into hatred. He had worked harder than his brother. He had sacrificed more. He had given everything he had, and it was not enough. The Lord saw this darkness growing and spoke to Cain with words that echo through eternity. Why are you angry? Why has your face fallen? If you do well, will you not be accepted? But if you do not do well, sin is crouching at the door. Its desire is for you, but you must rule over it. These were not condemnations. They were warnings. They were mercy reaching out to stop a man from walking off a cliff he could not see. God described sin as a living thing, a beast waiting to devour. A predator whose only desire was destruction. But he also gave hope. Rule over it. You have a choice. The door is not yet closed. The beast has not yet won. Cain heard these words. He let them pass through his ears and evaporate into the air. He did not want to rule over his sin. He wanted his sin to rule over his brother. Days passed. The wound festered. Every time Cain saw Abel with his flocks, every time he heard his brother's peaceful singing, every time he remembered the fire falling and the silence that answered his own offering, the poison spread deeper. He began to watch his brother, to study his movements. to calculate the moments when they would be alone. And Abel suspected nothing. This is the tragedy of innocence. It cannot imagine the calculations of envy. The shepherd continued to walk his hills, to care for his flocks, to speak kindly to the brother who was slowly becoming his executioner. He trusted the bond of blood, the shared origin, the assumption that family protects its own. He could not have known that he was already dead in Cain's heart, that the murder had been committed in the imagination long before the stones were lifted. The field was waiting. Cain knew it well. He had worked this land since childhood, knew every stone and furrow, knew how the wind moved through the tall grass, knew which corners were hidden from the eyes of their parents' tent. It was his territory, his domain, the place where his labor had made him master. He said to his brother, "Let us go out to the field." The invitation was casual, the tone friendly, the words chosen to raise no alarm. And Abel, innocent as the lambs he tended, agreed. Perhaps he was glad for the attention, for the restoration of fellowship, for the hope that whatever had come between them might now be healed. They walked together through the morning light. Two brothers, two destinies, one walking toward life, the other escorting him toward death. The conversation began normally. Talk of the flocks, of the harvest, of their parents' health. But Cain was not listening. He was watching. He was waiting. He was feeling the weight of the first stone he had hidden in his garment, the instrument he had prepared for this moment, the answer he had chosen to his unbearable pain. And then the moment came. The words turned sharp. The accusation emerged. "Why do you look at me with such pride? Why do you flaunt your acceptance before my rejection?" Abel tried to answer, to explain, to soothe the wounded heart he did not fully understand. But explanations are useless against envy. Reason cannot reach a soul that has chosen rage. Cain struck first. The stone connected with flesh. Abel fell. The shepherd who had never raised his hand against any living thing found himself the victim of violence he could not comprehend. He tried to rise. He tried to speak. Cain struck again. And again. The stones rose and fell with the rhythm of harvest, but this was not grain being threshed. This was bone breaking. This was blood spilling. This was the first human being to die at the hands of another. Abel's blood soaked into the ground that Cain had spent his life cultivating. The earth that had received his sweat now drank his brother's life. The shepherd's flocks scattered across the hills, bleeding for a master who would never return. And Cain stood over the body, his hands shaking, his breath ragged, the stone falling from fingers that suddenly seemed to belong to someone else. What have I done? The question came too late. The door that God had warned him about had been thrown open. The beast had been fed, and there was no going back. The silence that followed was deeper than any that had come before. Not the silence of God's rejection, but the silence of God's attention. The Lord said to Cain, "Where is Abel your brother?" The question was not for God's information. It was for Cain's soul. It was the moment of reckoning, the opportunity to confess, to break, to begin the long road back from the precipice. Cain answered with words that have become the anthem of every evildoer who refuses to face their crime. "I do not know. Am I my brother's keeper?" The denial was immediate. The defiance was breathtaking. He who had murdered his brother now pretended innocence. He who had destroyed the life God had created now questioned his responsibility to protect it. The Lord spoke again, and his words carried the weight of judgment. "What have you done? The voice of your brother's blood is crying to me from the ground." The ground that had received Abel's offering of blood now received Abel's blood itself, and the earth itself became witness against the crime. The first murder had been committed, and creation itself could not be silent. And now you are cursed from the ground, which has opened its mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. When you work the ground, it shall no longer yield to you its strength. You shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth. The punishment fit the crime with terrible precision. Cain had made the ground drink blood. Now the ground would reject his labor. He who had been a farmer would become a vagrant. He who had sought to establish himself through his work would find no place to rest. The very earth that had been his identity would become his accuser, his prison, his endless exile. Cain's response was not repentance. It was fear. "My punishment is greater than I can bear. Behold, you have driven me today away from the ground, and from your face I shall be hidden. I shall be a fugitive and a wanderer on the earth, and whoever finds me will kill me." He feared not the justice of God, but the vengeance of men. He who had murdered feared being murdered. He who had ended his brother's life clung desperately to his own. There was no remorse for Abel, only terror for himself. And here the mystery of divine mercy appears again, even in the midst of judgment. The Lord put a mark on Cain, lest any who found him should attack him. Not a mark of shame, but a mark of protection. The first murderer would not become the second murder victim. God would not allow the cycle of violence to begin its endless spiral. Cain would live with his curse. He would not escape it through death. This is the terrible mercy of God. He gives life even to those who have forfeited it. He protects even those who have destroyed what he made. He allows the consequences of sin to unfold, but he places limits on those consequences. The mark of Cain was not a reward. It was a burden, the burden of living with what he had done. Cain went away from the presence of the Lord. The phrase is heavy with meaning. He had already been hidden from God's face in punishment. Now he made the separation complete. He walked east of Eden, further from the garden than even his parents had been cast. He found a land called Nod, which means wandering. And there he built a city. Think of this. The first city in Scripture is built by the first murderer. Civilization itself rises from blood. Cain named the city after his son, Enoch, as if to establish a legacy that would outlast his crime. As if to prove that he could still create, still build, still matter, despite the destruction he had wrought. His descendants would become the fathers of tent dwellers and cattle keepers, of musicians and craftsmen, of those who worked bronze and iron. Culture, technology, art, industry, all flowing from the line of the first man to kill. The world that emerged from Cain was not a world of barbarism. It was a world of sophistication, of achievement, of human glory. But it was also a world that knew violence. Lamech, Cain's great-great-great-grandson, would boast of killing a man for wounding him, a young man for striking him. If Cain is avenged sevenfold, truly Lamech 77-fold. The mathematics of vengeance had begun. The mark that protected Cain became the precedent that multiplied retribution. One death had become many. One murder had become a culture of murder. This is the legacy of the first killing. It does not remain isolated. It reproduces. It teaches. It becomes the pattern that future generations follow, each one believing that their violence is justified, that their vengeance is righteous, that their cause is different from the one that came before. But the story does not end with Cain. While the line of the murderer was building cities and forging metals, Adam and Eve had another son. Seth, born to replace Abel, born to continue the line that Cain had severed. In Seth's time, people began to call upon the name of the Lord. Two lines, two humanities, one born of violence, establishing itself through strength and achievement, one born of prayer, maintaining connection with the God who had created them both. The descendants of Cain would produce the weapons and the warriors. The descendants of Seth would produce the prophets and the faithful. This is the choice that faces every generation. The way of Cain or the way of Seth. The city built by human hands or the altar built for divine acceptance. The mark of protection for the murderer or the mark of faith for the believer. The story of the first murder is not merely an ancient tragedy. It is the template for every tragedy that follows. Look at the world around you. The headlines that scream of brothers killing brothers, of envy consuming nations, of the favored and the rejected locked in endless struggle. The blood of Abel still cries from the ground. The curse of Cain still drives humanity into wandering. The mark of protection still preserves the lives of those who have done terrible things, giving them time to repent, to turn, to find the way back from the east of Eden. What does this ancient story demand of us? It demands that we recognize the beast crouching at our own doors. The sin that desires us, that waits for our anger, our rejection, our wounded pride. It demands that we rule over it, that we choose the harder path of mastery rather than the easy path of surrender. It demands that we examine our offerings, not the religious rituals, but the daily gifts we bring to our relationships, our work, our world. Do we give our first and our best, or do we give what we can spare? Do we offer life, or do we offer the fruits of our own self-sufficiency? It demands that we hear the voice of blood that cries from the ground. The voices of those destroyed by envy, by violence, by the refusal of their brothers to be their keepers. The story of Cain and Abel is not locked in ancient history. It is happening now, in homes and streets and nations, wherever one human being decides that another's favor is their injury, that another's blessing is their curse, that another's life is expendable. The field is still waiting. The invitation to walk out together is still being extended. The stones are still being gathered, hidden in garments, prepared for the moment when rage overcomes reason. And the voice of God is still speaking, still warning, still offering the chance to rule over the beast before it rules over us. Cain chose murder. He chose the lie. He chose the wandering that never ends. But his story stands as a monument and a warning, a demonstration of what happens when we allow our wounds to become our weapons. When we transform our rejected offerings into justifications for destruction. You are not Cain. The story has been written so that you might write a different one. The beast is crouching, but the door is not yet closed. The ground has not yet drunk the blood that cannot be unspilled. The mark of protection is still available, not because you deserve it, but because the God who placed it on the first murderer still places limits on the consequences of sin, still gives time for turning. Still whispers that the way back from the east of Eden has been opened by another sacrifice, another offering of blood that speaks better things than the blood of Abel. This is the story of the first murder. Not a tale of monsters, but of men. Not a legend of ancient evil, but a mirror of present danger. The first death at human hands was brother killing brother. And every death that follows carries something of that original tragedy, that original waste, that original choice to destroy what we cannot bear to see blessed. Remember Cain. Remember Abel. Remember the field, the stones, the blood crying out, the curse, the mark, the wandering, the city built to forget. Remember that you stand where they stood, that the beast crouches where it crouched, that the choice remains as urgent now as it was in the morning of the world. And choose differently. Subscribe now to walk through more ancient stories that explain our modern world. Hit the bell so you never miss the next chapter of humanity's hidden history. Share this video with someone who needs to hear that the beast can be ruled, that the field does not have to become a grave, that the story of Cain and Abel can end differently in our generation. Comment below with the word choice if you commit to mastering the sin that crouches at your door. This is not just content. This is survival. This is transformation. This is the story that can save your life. The next story is waiting. Are you? The blood still speaks. The ground still remembers. The choice still stands before you, as it stood before Cain in the field, as it stands before every human heart that beats beneath the ancient sky. Rule over it, or be ruled. Build the city, or call upon the name of the Lord. The first murder taught us what we are capable of. The rest of history waits to see what we will choose.